Hi class, this is my presentation on the Delta Chi fraternity for ethnographic research. I hope you guys enjoy. Alrighty, let's start with an introduction. So, Delta Chi is a big national fraternity. What that means is it has fraternities all throughout different regions of the country. Also, that being said, as far as Colorado goes, the UNC chapter is one of the only ones within the state. We've chartered other chapters before, but they're just no longer still standing at their respective universities. So we're slowly trying to charter more other than just UNC. And that location is located at 1803 10th Avenue. A lot of students refer to this area as Greek Row because it's right next to three of the biggest sororities on campus. Um, it also has been a national fraternity for almost 130 years, so it's more than a century old. On the right-hand side here, we have a picture of the chapter house here at UNC. For this project, I had a few research questions that I really wanted to investigate. Those included what is the progression that a member goes through when they rise the ranks in the house, like joining the fraternity, becoming inactive, and then what gets them to get onto the executive board. And another thing that I really wanted to look into is what are some of the biggest challenges fraternity members face when trying to balance school and fraternity involvement. Any of you know that are in extracurricular activities, it's not easy when you're a student, so I want to see how they go about it. And I also wanted to know what are some of the key factors that motivated people to join the fraternity in the first place, whether they had parents within the fraternity or they already had friends at the university that joined, or factors like that. My second day of All right, so my first day of field site observations was on March 11th at about 10:45. Today I really wanted to focus on just getting a feel for the environment. So I did a walk around of the house, a big tour. It has three different floors. It's a seven-bedroom house, and along this area, you see a lot of composites hanging up on the walls, which are pictures of fraternity members of each year. So they go from 1984 all the way up to 2018. And in the back of the house, there's actually a garage out back. There's carvings in the walls there with a bunch of different brothers' names in them. Another thing that I noticed is on the second floor, there's a study, and apparently that room is completely dedicated to fraternity objects. There are also Greek letters pretty much scattered all throughout the house, painted onto the walls, as well as a symbolic coat of arms. It's a red and buff shield with three martlets flying in it, as well as an axe crossed with a sword. The meaning of that's very sacred to those that are, members of the house. And other things that really stuck out to me is just like a lot of people would expect, this is an old house. It's not necessarily the cleanest environment, even though it has a really cool layout. I actually noted in my field journal that the house is a little stinky. There's some holes in the walls and stains on floors. All indicate to me that the chapter house is somewhat old. Even though, it's a little bit stinky and there's some, typical messiness around there, it's still a really, really cool house. You can feel the history when you walk in, and I thought that was also a really unique thing. My second day of observations occurred on March 19th. I got to the house around noon that day, and unlike when I came in the last time, it was no longer spring break, so I was able to talk to a lot of the brothers and get permission to spend most of the day in the study and discussed a little bit about it with some of them. The study is pretty much the most sacred room in the entire house, so I thought it was very important to have at least one day where I solely focused on that area and why it's so important to the house. In this room, all the rituals and brotherhood events that Delta Chi conducts, this is where they occur. And also in this area, there are charter documents, trophies awarded by the universities, such as Greek Week events and homecoming events, and There's also some of the older composites from the really early fraternity days, like 1980s, 1990s, as opposed to scattered throughout the house where most of the 2000s are. Um, in this area, we basically keep it extremely sacred and forbidden to anyone that's not a fraternity member. It remains locked at almost all times, and the only people that have keys for it are the brothers. Basically, this has to happen because our ritual and brotherhood events are very sacred. We can't disclose anything about the specifics of those events, and that being said, we really want to protect that, and that's why it remains locked. Day three of my observations occurred on the 22nd of March, only a few days after walking around the study. And this was by far the most meaningful time that I spent at the fraternity because I had a chance to sit down with Samuel Brown. And Sam Brown is actually a member of the executive board. He's our treasurer, so he's in charge of like all the financing stuff, pretty much does anything that a simple accountant would do. And it was also kind of nice because Sam's room is on the bottom floor, and the first 2 days I really just spent on the top and second level. So to be able to go downstairs and check that out a little bit too was really cool. But basically, he provided me with a lot of information, such as our house was originally an orphanage. I didn't know that prior to conducting this assignment. And he also was able to really give me a lot more information as far as what encourages people to join the house and what the culture is like of those people, which we'll get into on the next slide. All right, as I alluded to earlier, there were quite a few research questions that I had prior to conducting this assignment, and being able to sit down with Sam and interviewing him was actually really helpful to answering some of those questions. One of the questions that I asked Sam was, what is the key factor that motivated you to joining Delta Chi? And Sam responded with, my dad is a Delta Chi and his experiences are what motivated my joining. As I was alluding to earlier, people that are legacies, that have a parent or even just any family member in the same fraternity, that will usually incline those people to join the fraternity of such. One thing that's also really unique, when I further discussed this with Sam, not only is his dad any Delta Chi, he was a Delta Chi here at the UNC chapter. That is extremely rare because Delta Chi is a big national fraternity, but to be, father and son within the same chapter house, that's really something unique. And I was actually able to look at Sam's dad's composite within the study on day two. So that was another cool thing. Now, the next question I asked Sam, the response that I got was probably the most meaningful thing anyone had said to me during my research. I asked Sam if he could tell me a bit about the culture of Delta Chi, and he responded with, we're really laid back. I'd say Delta Chi has sort of a islands of misfits vibe to it, and we accept everyone for who they are. We really pride ourselves in not being cookie cutter. One of my research questions was trying to discover if all these stereotypes were true about fraternities, and there's all these sayings about how fraternity boys are supposed to act, dress, and they all act the same. This pretty much really proved that wrong for me. At Delta Chi, there's so many different types of people that join. There's people that are from all over the U.S. that all come to UNC to study something different. They have different backgrounds. They have different hobbies and interests and studies, but they all gel to get together really, really well, like a brotherhood. So no one person's the same. We don't like to kind of like he was saying with the cookie cutter. Everyone there is really different, and we love them for being themselves. So that was probably the most meaningful thing that I was offered by in this interview. Another thing that I was able to talk about Sam with is some of the challenges that people face as far as trying to balance school and fraternity membership. Anyone of you that's in extracurricular activities can probably relate to this. It's not easy when you're a full-time student trying to tackle something else that requires a lot of involvement and commitment. But when I asked him about that, he responded with, it's really just about time management. School always comes first. You can't participate fully in the house if you don't have good grades. As I was saying with living in the chapter house earlier, if you're not, participating in school, becoming a member of the house is not something that's going to be typically easy. So, it really holds people to the standard. It's like a motivation because they don't want to not, be a part of the fraternity, so it's going to incline them to do better at school, which is actually something unique because Greek life on campus actually requires students to have a 2.5 GPA just to be in Greek life, which is even higher than what you need to be passing your classes. So they're held to a higher standard. All right. Now, just for some more cultural and historical context on the house, Delta Chi's spiritual founder is a man named Sir Edward Cook. He studied like law and justice way back in the late 1800s, and many of the aspects that he reflected were the values that we believed were important at Delta Chi. So he's the national spiritual founder. That goes for all Delta Chi. And another thing that's really important to the house is the preamble. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance when you stand up and do that in school or whatnot. Every meeting that occurs Monday nights for the Delta Chi here at UNC, they start the meeting by all standing up and stating a statement that starts with "We, the members of the Delta Chi fraternity," and so forth. And that's like a pretty common practice as well as far as this community of people goes. Also, when I joined the house in 2015, that marked the 125th year anniversary, which was also really unique. Alrighty. In conclusion, doing field research with the Delta Chi fraternity was a really cool experience that I really enjoyed. I got to really get a lot of closure with my research questions, such as learning about the culture of Delta Chi. As Sam stated in his interview, we have a really laid back vibe, and I really was able to sense that on all days of doing field research. Just by being able to watch the members interact with each other, it was very evident. Another thing I noticed is most members in the house have friends within the Greek life community at UNC itself, meaning that they may have friends that are actually in different fraternities or sororities, and they all get along pretty well. It's a good Greek community. There's no rivalries within that or anything. It also offered a really unique perspective as far as trying to reflect on the stereotypes and misleading preconceptions that people have. One of the big things I wanted to research was kind of what the cultures of fraternity promotes, and it's not this false mythology of drinking and partying and stuff like that. There's a lot more to it. People there join it for the bond and brotherhood. They don't just join a community because they want to do stuff that they can do on their own time anyways. But yeah, this was really a great experience. I really enjoyed this project, and I really look forward to looking at your guys' research studies as well. Thanks again.